look at what came to visit me recently up in California. What a beautiful animal, isn't it?
It's like a remote control car because then it slows down.
You want to know why I think it's beautiful? I'm originally from Mexico. And if you look in the flag of Mexico, I'm not making this up, go and Google it. Look at what's inside there. Is what? Snake? And which type of snake? A rattlesnake. And this comes from a story that they had, the Aztecs. They were looking to build a city, and they were looking for a snake eating a snake that was being eaten by an eagle, and supposedly where they found that, they were going to build a city. And supposedly that's where they found this in Mexico City, and that's where they built that city there. That city used to be called Tenochtitlan, and then the Spanish came, destroyed it, and rebuilt it. Let me show you a few pictures of Mexico. Mexico is big, so it's very varied. These canyons in the northern part of Mexico, this is located south from Texas, are deeper than the Grand Canyon. It's called the Copper Canyon. There's actually a train ride that goes by the side. You can see there the beautiful canyons there. And these mountains are inhabited by certain Native Americans called the Tarahumara Indians. Okay? And they dress very bright and so forth. Some of them don't even speak Spanish. If you take that train ride, you're able to see that. When I took it myself, there was a couple that came all the way from Switzerland just to see this in Mexico. There's many volcanoes also. This is a town, that got overrun by the volcanoes. The middle of Mexico is very fertile, and here is a big lavender fields. Okay? This is part of that canyon all the way to the very bottom. This in southern Mexico, these high mineral cascades, they form these beautiful formations. And then in the south of Mexico, you have what is called the cenote. Cenote is when the underwater rivers dissolve the calcium-rich upper strata, and you have these big, big holes, and in the bottom, these very transparent underwater rivers that run through there, actually quite cold. In the north, there are many deserts, okay? And this is the famous resort town of Cabo, all the way to the very bottom of the peninsula. This in the south, many beautiful forest. And this is hot springs, You can sit there in that water and watch there, the beautiful valley in front of you. And this is kind of close to where I grew up. If you notice, no trees, okay? That's why I'm shocked when I come here, trees everywhere and greenery and so forth. Look at this beach. This beach is called the Hidden Beach, okay? And this is where I grew up. Notice in the tree, in the mountains, no trees, okay? It rains only like 20 days in the whole year, okay? The rest of the year is nice and sunny. And there's a special phenomena that happened there called the blowhole, in which water goes in a certain angle and shoots very, very, very high. These are the biggest crystals in the world, and are found in northern Mexico. They drain a mine, and when they drain that mine, those huge crystals form. It is so hot here, you cannot be there longer than 15 minutes. And these plants, they make a very poisonous substance called tequila. Avoid it. It's not good for you. Tremendous carcinogenic. Now, before it becomes the tequila, they cut the top part and they get this liquid out of this plant, and that is the famous agave nectar. Have you heard about that? That stuff is good for you, okay? Actually, even diabetics can use some of that, as it doesn't have a negative effect on their sugars. This is the tallest mountain in Mexico. You can actually walk all the way to the very top in that mountain. And this is some of the deserts located in the north part of Mexico. There's a special beach in the southern part in which algae make this beautiful color of the water. And a forest in the middle of Mexico. And this is an oasis town. So you have this desert around it, and then suddenly becomes nice and green. There is actually quite a bit of Americans that move there to retire. There's a big expat community in that area. There's actually flights that go from Los Angeles. I don't know if they come from Seattle, but there's a big airport there that receives those expats. This is in southern Mexico. And this very special place in the middle of Mexico, all the monarch butterflies from Canada and America migrate down there to this special forest. And you can see, millions and millions of butterflies there spending the winter. And then once the winter is over, they fly back. Amazing, isn't it? I mean, what size is the brain of a butterfly, It's a tiny little thing. How do they know how to reach Canada, It's a long ways, Well, somebody up there, must be telling them how to get there. So, this is, I was actually, last week, I was in this area. That's still an active volcano. You can still see it very often, throwing all that smoke and sometimes a little bit of lava. In fact, close to Mexico City is this huge volcano that still is active. Let's see if you can say the name of it. It's called the Popocatépetl. It is a word from the language of the Indians, the Nahuatl Indians. I'm co-author also in the book Rethink Food, together with Dr. Hans Diehl and Dr. Neil Barnard and Dr. Estil and Dr. Greger. This website is a website you need to have in your favorites. His website of Dr. Greger is called nutritionfacts.org. Okay? Fantastic. If you have a health question, go there. And what he does, he makes a video 3 to 5 minutes long summarizing the current findings in the scientific literature. I'm also co-author in the latest edition of the Lifestyle Medicine book. And here, the top experts on lifestyle, they are sharing about their expertise in the different aspects of lifestyle. The chapter that I wrote here is the chapter on stress management. So, this is where you find all that research that I'm going to be sharing with you. And let me share with you a couple of things on my Twitter, one of the latest things I put there. This one very interesting one about chronic Lyme. Many people complain about chronic Lyme. This is from Harvard University, in which they were showing how it has to do with the fact that the cells that are affected by Lyme, they throw away their outermost layer, and that those layers get accumulated in the joints, and they're thinking that is what causes that chronic Lyme. Very interesting article. This other one, how not sleeping enough has a negative effect on the way that you handle lipids. In other words, you're more likely to gain weight when you are not sleeping enough. And how one good night's sleep, it helps, but it doesn't remove completely all the effects. So you need to make sure that your goal should be to sleep good long term. And this other one from the American Heart Association, this just came out on Friday, how sleeping less than 6 hours raises your risk for cancer and premature death. And this other one, fascinating article, how males that drink alcohol 3 months before conception, their children have a 44% more increased probability of having a heart issue. And if they did binge drinking when they were abusing the alcohol in a period of 6 months, just the fact that they did binge drinking increases risk for malformations by 52%. One of the many reasons why you shouldn't partake of alcohol. Again, you find that on this Twitter account. Just type this on your browser and you can have access to those studies. All of that is free. I'm not telling you absolutely anything. It just serves as motivation for you to do the right changes. So let's talk about what is called the ACEs and your mental health. You'll learn by the end of this lecture what are those ACEs. A few studies before we start. This one about lead, how lead has a negative effect on your depression. People exposed to lead are more likely to have depression, but how the lifestyle changes that we have been talking about, even those people exposed to lead, is beneficial for them. This one about stroke. Many people with stroke will develop depression. How also people that have had the stroke can improve by doing lifestyle changes. And this one about fish. In this study, we show how fish consumption was linked to depression. Okay? And this other one, how fish consumption actually reduces emotional intelligence, your ability to get along with others. And the reason why fish and animal products is problematic is due to one interesting phenomena whose name is biomagnification. That's what you're going to look for if you want to learn more about this subject. Biomagnification is how toxins in the environment increase in an exponential way when we go higher in the food chain. Let me give you an example. This is a lake not too far from Weimar. It's called the Clear Lake. Why do you think it's called the Clear Lake? Because it's clear, it's clean. There's not a factory next door throwing stuff on there. This is up, up in the Sierras. And what they did, they measured the lake water for an insecticide by the name of DDT. DDT is banned. That one is no longer used. But DDT still is used. These levels are so low, you could even drink this water, not too big of a deal. But notice this. The microorganisms living in these waters had 5 parts per million. The fish eating these microscopic organisms had between 40 to 300 parts per million. Can you see how this is going? It's not linear, but it's exponential the way that these toxins are accumulating. In fact, the carnivorous fish eating the herbivorous fish had up to 2,500 parts per million. Tremendous concentrations. And that is what's happening to our world. As small toxins arrive on the water, they start bioaccumulating tremendously as you go up the food chain. Now, there's a good documentary. If you're interested in the topic, go ahead and Google it and watch it. I used to live in Norway. I actually speak Norwegian because I used to live in Norway, and I can testify about this. This documentary is called Farm Norwegian Salmon, World's Most Toxic Food. Okay? Go and watch it and learn what they're doing to those fjords in Norway and other areas around the world. And one of the things they're mentioning there in that documentary is that there is all this toxicity that is accumulated in the different foods, especially the animal foods, that are the ones that are very toxic. And this one, about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your ability to get along with others. Have you seen that there's certain people that they just cannot get along with others? They throw sparks, isn't it, anytime they are with other people. Because you can be a genius regarding your intelligence, yet you can have an above average emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence gives you, helps you become a successful person, okay? So in this study, we're showing how emotional intelligence can be improved as you do the right changes and start working with your mind. So let's discover these ACEs that I was mentioning to you, okay? I'm going to do a little quiz. I don't want you to raise your hand and answer, okay? I want you to answer in your head, okay? Here is a little quiz to detect these ACEs. Before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? Again, answer this only in your head. Question 2, before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured? Question 3, before your 18th birthday, did an adult or a person at least 5 years older than you ever try or did sexually abuse you? Question 4, before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? Question 5, before your 18th birthday, did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, or had no one to protect you, or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you or take you to the doctor if you need it? Question 6, before your 18th birthday, was a biological parent ever lost to you through divorce, abandonment, or other reason? Question 7, before your 18th birthday, was your mother or stepmother often or very often push, grab, slap, or had something thrown at her, or sometimes often or very often kick, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard, or ever hit over at least a few minutes or threatened with a knife or a gun? Question 8, before your 18th birthday, did you live with anyone who was a problematic drinker or alcoholic or who used street drugs? Question 9, before your 18th birthday, was a household member depressed, mentally ill, or a household member attempt suicide? And finally, before your 18th birthday, did a household member go to prison? What you just heard is what is called the adverse childhood events. Adverse childhood events can be classified in 3 big groups, which are physical abuse, emotional or sexual, neglect, in which the physical needs or the emotional needs are not met in the person, or there is dysfunctionality in the household, such as having somebody mentally ill, somebody lost through incarceration, women that are treated violently in the household, substance abuse, or divorce. These adverse childhood events have a big mark on those children, and they can affect the future health. For example, this study was first published back in 1998 in San Diego. And you know, they were studying what you would call a privileged group. That group was mostly white, middle and upper class, college educated. They had good jobs on healthcare. So that group, they run these adverse childhood events to see how common they were. Notice the findings. They found that these adverse childhood events are quite common. In that group that they study, 66% of them had at least one of these adverse childhood events. Another finding that they found was that if there was one type, there was 87% chance there was going to be a second or a third one. So, which means that they usually don't occur by themselves, but rather occur by many. Third, they found out that the more of those adverse childhood events present, the more the probability that there was going to be long-term effects due to having suffered that. And four, they were able to relate something very interesting. A lot of those missing work, a lot of those using health care, a lot of those visits to the ER, a lot of those having criminal issues, they could relate those that had adverse childhood events were more likely to have these issues in their lives. So, for example, those having those adverse childhood events had higher number of doctor visits. Those having higher numbers of adverse childhood events had unexplained physical symptoms in which the person, everything seemed fine, laboratories are fine, yet the person says something is wrong, I can feel something is not right. Adverse childhood events explain a lot of this. And the problem is that when somebody experiences these adverse childhood events, different things happen to them, such as not feeling safe. Because in their household, they didn't feel safe. Once they're separated and live by themselves, they cannot trust and they're fearful as those adverse childhood events have affected them. Also, they have problems putting their limits. As others that they were trusting, they hurt them. Now they have problems putting those barriers. Also, they have problems attaching to others, connecting with other people, because those close to them were supposed to connect with them and did not connect. And many of them have this shame that carries with them through life. Even though they may not be their fault, they get this shame that they carry with them. And they have problems entering into emotional intimacy due to the fact that they close themselves to try to protect themselves from these childhood events. And they also have a low self-worth by the way that they were treated and so forth. Instead of encouraging them a healthy self-worth, they have issues with their self-worth. And one of the problems with these people that experience these adverse childhood events is that they tend to play the tape again in their head. And they repeat that abuse over and over in their head. And you think that's good? No, because they re-experience the pain and the trauma and so forth. That's why when we're helping these people overcome these ACEs, we need to tell them, stop playing the tape, Because sometimes as you're playing it, you even add things that were not even there. And even make the story worse. So you have to stop playing that tape. And notice this. This is not a prophecy, by the way. This is what could happen if you don't deal with them. Okay? Those people with adverse childhood events are twice as likely to have cancer, 460% more likely to end up with depression, 20% more likely to end up with autoimmune conditions that need hospitalization, 20% less longevity, and 360% more likely to have heart disease. Again, this is not a prophecy, okay? But if you don't deal with these things, this could severely affect your mental health. And the problem is that it's not only your mental health. These adverse childhood events, what they do, they put you in a constant stress mode. The person cannot even relax due to the fact that those hormones keep on running and running in their body. And you can actually start to see physical manifestations as those stress hormones start to activate and affect different parts of the organism. So what can you do about this? The same recipe that we were talking about this morning. Remember the article that we published with the 10 causes of depression? Well, adverse childhood events, we have to deal with them. And for God, there is no impossible. And God can bring healing and forgiveness in the lives of these people that went through all these traumatic experiences. In fact, it's very interesting. If you ever seen somebody that had gone through all these issues and they were able to overcome them, man, they become the sweetest persons ever. Their character, shines bright as a result of that. So, with the help of God, it is possible to bring that healing. And as others also pray for you and support you, some people may need some help from a Christian cognitive behavioral therapist to help them deal with some of these issues. Some others are able to get help by self-help books and videos and so forth. So what we need to do, we need to have a change. And change sometimes is not the nicest word for many people. But sometimes we need to change even the way we think. Because these adverse childhood events can send our thinking into a rut, okay? And make you a negative person and so forth. But it is possible to change the way we think. What did we learn at midday? Neuroplasticity. The brain has the capacity to change. And even if those adverse childhood events created a big track, remember the pathway we were talking about in your brain, it is possible to change the way we think, and by not feeding that track anymore, what's going to happen to it? It's going to disappear, and healing definitely can take place. So when people come to our program, these are the common hits that we see them. Notice the number one, which one is that? The circadian that we talked about. Remember, not having order in your life. Can you do something about that? Yes, you can do something about that. Next one, what is the next one? The lifestyle hit. So you can start an exercise program, you can expose yourself to bright light, you can breathe fresh air. And then genetic, you cannot change this one, but you can change the frontal lobe, nutrition, social. In fact, this is what happens at the end of our 10 days. Look, the tremendous decrease in the hits. There's one that grows, actually, and that is the medical hit. The reason why it goes up is because when you come to our residential program, we do blood tests and different things, and we sometimes diagnose you of things you didn't know you had. And that's why it actually goes higher than when we started. Now, this is what happens to the people that come and start doing the lifestyle changes at our lifestyle center for the depression program. Notice how they come with this severe type of depression. It's almost to the very top. This is the average patient that comes to us. And notice the tremendous decrease that happened in their mental health. How long did it take? It take years? No, 10 days. That's how fast the mind starts to heal once you put the right environment and lifestyle on board. And the same story happens with anxiety. You can see on average they have moderate high anxiety, and by the end of the program, the anxiety has gone down. Now, this residential 10-day program, if I were to go to a community to teach you what to do and tell you all the things that you need to do, it's too many things, okay? So what we have done, we broke down that 10-day residential program into small pieces, and we teach you how to run this 8-week community program in which you come once a week for 2 hours, learn a few of those principles, practice them for a week, then go home, come back next week, and then learn a few more. And in that way, you continue to absorb the program, and by the end of the 8th week, you are doing that lifestyle. It would be fantastic if this church could run some of those community programs, yes or no? So that you can help the people in the community establish these principles. Look at what happened. This is the statistics of that community 8-week program. Notice how some have severe depression, some have moderate, some have it mild, and some actually don't have depression, yet they come, some of them because they just want to learn about mental health, or sometimes they come accompanying another person. You know, the person may feel shame or whatever if they come by themselves, and if another one comes with them, they're more likely to come. Notice what happened. Keep your eye here on the none. By the end of the 8 weeks, tremendous improvement that happened. And this is just an educational program. This is not even a medical program. But we are teaching you good, healthy behaviors, and as you practice that, tremendous healing can take place. And it works also for anxiety. And if you're in the medical world, you know that anxiety is very hard to help. Yet, with the tools of this program, anxiety responds beautifully. Notice this is no anxiety here, severe, moderate, mild. Keep your eye here on the none. Look at what happened at the end of the 8 weeks. Tremendous improvement. as the healing of those ACEs and the establishment of those good lifestyles are established in the life of the person, this brings healing in their lives. Now, suicidal thoughts that we were talking a little bit also this morning. This is what happens to the suicidal thoughts. This is the community program. Some of them have those suicide thoughts all the time. Some have it half the time. Some have it quarter of the time. And some don't have them, 69% of them. Notice what happens by the end of the 8 weeks. The tremendous decrease, and those that had it severe became less and less and less. Tremendous improvement as we start dealing with the root cause of the problem. And the same thing happens in our residential program. This is our medical residential program in Weimar. If you see, more people have the suicidal thoughts in our program. 12 have it all the time, 16 have it half the time, and 20% have a quarter of the time. Notice what happens by the end of the 10-day program. Tremendous decrease in suicidal thoughts. So again, as you empower people so that they can take control of their thinking and take personal responsibility for their thoughts, as you practice this, this starts to change your brain and healing starts to come in your life. So let me tell you one more clinical case. This is Christy. She had issues with drug addictions and so forth. She was having a hard time with her life. And the parents, very worried about her, sent her to us. And she did not want it to be there. So when she got there, the first day, she escaped. We got her, brought her back. A few days later, she escaped again. We got her. And then she escaped a third time. And we got her again. And we were so concerned that she was going to escape a fourth time that we sent one of our staff to sleep on her door. Okay? So in case she tried to escape, because she usually would do it in the night, if she were to try to escape in the night, at least there was a staff there waiting for her. And something happened to her. Something touched her. And before she was rebel, she didn't want to do none of the things, so we were telling her and so forth. Yet she felt the love and care and how we really wanted to help her. And she felt touch. And she decided to start making the changes. And tremendous healing took place in her life. She was able to overcome those addictions. She had a child. She was able to take care again of her child. She was able to finish her nursing degree. And today, she is without any psychiatric medication, working full-time, taking good care of her child. And in fact, she even comes to our program very often to help us as the nurse of our program. You can actually hear her testimony if you Google these words. Highly recommend that if you want to hear an inspiring story. Just Google, by the word of her testimony, Christy Christopher. This is on 3AVN Australia radio. It's free. You just Google that and you can listen to it. Very nice, inspiring story to show you that yes, it is possible to overcome even those adverse childhood events. And she is a living testimony of this. In fact, some of the things she does, she goes and shares her testimony often and teaches other people, how to live a healthy lifestyle. So some of the studies we've been doing showing how this program actually works very well. This one showing how marijuana, as harmful as benzos and narcotics regarding your mental health. One of the reasons why you need to stop this if you want the healing to take place. And how when there is alcoholics in the family, as we mentioned, the adverse childhood events, remember the one we just read? How that increases the probability of depression. But notice the shocking statistic that we found in our patient population. We're talking about 5,861 people in our study, yet about half of those people grew up with an alcoholic in their home. Tremendous problem in our society today. And this one, how listening to music TV like MTV and VH1 and this type of things, people that watch this type of channels, they are twice as likely to smoke compared to those that don't. Two reasons why. Number one, because this artist makes smoking look so cool, isn't it? And I want to do what the artist is doing, isn't it? And second reason why is because this type of music causes frontal lobe suppression. And by suppressing your frontal lobe, you are more likely to enter into addictive behaviors. This one about nicotine, very interesting study showing how people that use nicotine tend to have more anxiety, which is the funny thing. If you ask somebody that smokes, they're going to tell you, I smoke because it helps me with my anxiety. But your anxiety is actually worse with the nicotine than without it. And that's what we see in our program. As the person is able to overcome the cigarette habit, the mental health, both depression and anxiety, improves. And this one also, how marijuana has a very negative effect regarding your mental health. And this one also regarding alcohol, how alcohol is not the best thing for your mental health. And by eliminating it, your mental health improves. And this one about benzodiazepines, Xanax, alprazolam, lorazepam, this type of medications. We are showing here that the people that use this, they usually use them for their anxiety, but their anxiety is actually worse when they're using them. And that's why in our program we help people overcome these type of medications. And again, you can find all that research there in that Google. So as you can see, even those adverse childhood events, God can bring healing in your life. As you connect with Him, as you read His Word. Remember the study I was showing you from Albert Ellis? How he was saying that it can help the Bible more than all the therapists combined, she said. He said, Albert Ellis. So make sure that you are spending time reading the Word of God, and that's going to bring part of that healing. Sometimes you may have to do some things. Sometimes you need to write that letter, make that phone call, isn't it? And start that healing process so that your mental health can improve and you can live a more healthy and fulfilling life. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope to see you, isn't it, in a near future seminar. And meanwhile, you can follow through this medium here the different things that I'm doing, and keep up the good work. Apply these principles in your life, and you will see the blessing that they will become to you. Thank you very much.